She walked into the upscale restaurant wearing a dress from the clearance rack, never knowing her husband owned half the city. The waitress's cruel laughter would cost more than she could imagine. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Catherine, and this is the story of how one moment of cruelty revealed truths that changed everything. Not just for me, but for everyone involved. It's about the power of kindness, the danger of assumptions, and how sometimes the universe has a way of balancing the scales in the most unexpected ways. I never thought much about appearances growing up. My grandmother always said that clothes don't make the person makes the clothes. But standing in front of my closet that Tuesday morning, I felt the weight of every stare, every whispered comment, every raised eyebrow I'd endured over the past few months since moving to this wealthy neighborhood. My husband David had been traveling for work more frequently lately, something about expanding his consulting business. I supported his dreams completely, even though it meant spending more evenings alone, eating dinner by candlelight for one, watching old movies on our small television. The house we'd moved into was modest by the area's standards, a simple two-bedroom cottage that David said would be perfect for starting our family someday. I worked part-time at the local library, a job that brought me joy but not much income. Between my small salary and whatever David contributed from his consulting work, we managed just fine. We weren't wealthy, but we had each other, and that felt like everything. I'd learned to shop smart, hunting for bargains at outlet stores and end-of-season sales. There was something satisfying about finding a beautiful dress marked down to $20, knowing I could look presentable without breaking our careful budget. The dress I chose that morning was one of those treasures, a navy blue wrap dress with small white flowers. It had a tiny stain near the hem that I'd carefully treated, and the fabric had that slightly worn softness that comes from multiple washings. But it fit well, made me feel confident, and most importantly, it was clean and appropriate for lunch with my sister. Elena had been insistent about trying this new restaurant downtown, Romano's Bistro. She'd heard wonderful things about their seafood pasta and wanted to celebrate her recent promotion at the marketing firm. As twins, we'd always been each other's biggest supporters, though our lives had taken different paths. She climbed the corporate ladder with determination and designer suits, while I found happiness in quieter moments, recommending books to library patrons and planning the community reading programs. The restaurant's exterior was impressive, with large windows showcasing elegant table settings and fresh flowers. A valet took cars at the entrance, and I felt suddenly self-conscious about my 5-year-old sedan with its small dent in the rear bumper. But Elena was already waiting inside, waving excitedly from a table by the window, her enthusiasm infectious enough to push away my hesitation. The interior took my breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over cream-colored walls adorned with original artwork. Fresh orchids graced every table, and the soft murmur of conversation created an atmosphere of refined sophistication. This was clearly the kind of place where business deals were made and celebrations required reservations weeks in advance. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Elena looked radiant in her charcoal business suit, her hair professionally styled, makeup flawless. She embodied success in a way that made me both proud and slightly envious. Not of her achievements, but of her confidence. The way she moved through spaces like she belonged everywhere she went. "Catherine, you made it!" she exclaimed, standing to embrace me. "This place is incredible, isn't it? I've been dying to try their signature dishes." We settled into our seats, and I tried to ignore the way other diners glanced our way. Was it my imagination, or were they looking at my dress? My hair, which I'd pulled back in a simple ponytail. My shoes, comfortable flats I'd worn to work that morning. Elena chatted excitedly about her promotion, the new responsibilities, the team she'd be managing. "And the best part," she continued, "is that I finally feel like I'm making a difference, you know? Like my work matters." I smiled, genuinely happy for her success, though part of me wondered if my own work mattered to anyone beyond the small circle of library regulars who appreciated my book recommendations. Did helping Mrs. Patterson find large print mysteries or organizing story time for restless toddlers have the same impact as Elena's marketing campaigns? Our waitress approached the table, and immediately I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. She was young, probably early 20s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and makeup that suggested she spent significant time and money on her appearance. Her uniform was crisp, her posture confident, and her smile bright as she greeted Elena with warmth. "Welcome to Romano's. I'm Ashley, and I'll be taking care of you today. Can I start you ladies with something to drink?" Elena ordered a glass of their house Chardonnay, speaking with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to fine dining. When Ashley turned to me, I noticed her smile falter slightly, her eyes taking in my appearance with what seemed like assessment. "Just water for me, please," I said quietly. "Tap water?" she asked, her tone suggesting this was somehow inappropriate for the establishment. "That's fine, thank you." Ashley's smile returned, though it felt different now, more mechanical. "I'll get that right out for you." As she walked away, I heard her laugh quietly to another server, though I couldn't make out the words. Elena was looking at the menu, completely absorbed in the descriptions of various dishes. "The lobster ravioli sounds amazing, but so does the pan-seared salmon. What are you thinking?" I scanned the prices, my eyes widening slightly. The least expensive entree was $35, more than I typically spent on groceries for an entire week. "Maybe just a salad," I said, trying to sound casual. "Don't be silly," Elena laughed. "It's my treat, remember? I'm celebrating, and I want you to enjoy this with me. Get whatever looks good." Her generosity touched me, though I felt uncomfortable accepting such an expensive meal. Still, her excitement was contagious, and I found myself considering the chicken piccata, which sounded delicious and was one of the more moderately priced options. When Ashley returned with our drinks, she set Elena's wine down with a flourish, making a small show of the presentation. My water glass was placed down with notably less ceremony, and I noticed it was smaller than the wine glass, as if even the water service was somehow lesser. "Have you had a chance to look over the menu?" Ashley asked, directing her attention primarily to Elena. Elena ordered the lobster ravioli with enthusiasm, asking questions about the preparation and sauce. Ashley answered each inquiry with detailed knowledge and obvious pleasure, her face animated as she described the chef's special techniques. When it was my turn, I could feel Ashley's impatience, though she maintained her professional demeanor. "I'll have the chicken piccata, please. How would you like that prepared?" she asked, her tone suggesting this was a routine question rather than genuine interest. "However the chef recommends is fine." Ashley scribbled something on her notepad, then looked up with what I was beginning to recognize as her assessment smile. "Will you be needing separate checks?" The question hung in the air awkwardly. Elena quickly intervened. "No, just one check for me, thank you." After Ashley left, Elena leaned forward conspiratorially. "Don't mind her. She's probably just having a long day. The service industry can be tough." I nodded, wanting to believe that was all it was, but something in Ashley's demeanor suggested otherwise. There had been a subtle condescension in her interactions with me, a way of making me feel like I didn't quite belong in this elegant space. The bread arrived, warm and fragrant, served with herbed butter that melted on contact. Elena chatted about her weekend plans, a shopping trip to the new boutique district that had opened across town. "You should come with me," she suggested. "There's this adorable little dress shop that has the most beautiful things." I thought about my closet at home, filled with clearance finds and hand-me-downs from Elena's more fashion-forward purchases. "Maybe," I said, knowing I couldn't afford anything from boutiques but not wanting to dampen her enthusiasm. Our meals arrived with Ashley presenting Elena's dish like a work of art, describing each component with obvious pride. My chicken was set down with significantly less fanfare, though it smelled wonderful and looked perfectly prepared. "Enjoy," Ashley said, though her tone suggested she was already thinking about her next table. The food was exceptional, better than anything I'd tasted in months. Elena was right about celebrating here, the atmosphere and cuisine creating a sense of occasion that made her promotion feel even more significant. As we ate, she told me about her plans for the department, her ideas for improving efficiency and team morale. "I want to create an environment where everyone feels valued," she said, "where their contributions matter regardless of their background or experience level." Her words resonated with me, reminding me why I'd always admired her leadership qualities. Elena had a gift for seeing potential in people, for recognizing worth that others might overlook. Midway through our meal, Ashley returned to check on us, but her attention was clearly focused elsewhere. I noticed her whispering to another server, both of them glancing in our direction. When she approached our table, her smile seemed forced. "How is everything tasting?" she asked Elena directly. "Wonderful, really exceptional," Elena replied. "My sister was just saying how delicious her chicken is." Ashley's eyes flicked to me briefly, and I caught something in her expression that made my stomach tighten. It wasn't curiosity or professional interest. It was something closer to amusement, the kind that comes at someone else's expense. "That's nice," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but nice. "Can I get you anything else?" After she left, I tried to shake off the uncomfortable feeling settling over me. This was Elena's celebration, and I didn't want my own insecurities to spoil it, but I couldn't ignore the growing sense that I was being judged, found wanting, and dismissed. The restaurant filled with the lunch crowd, well-dressed business people, and elegantly attired women who moved through the space with the confidence that comes from belonging. I found myself studying them, noting their expensive handbags, their professionally styled hair, their easy familiarity with fine dining etiquette. Elena was telling me about a book she'd been reading, a biography of a successful entrepreneur who'd built her empire from nothing. "It's incredible how she overcame every obstacle," she said. "Really inspiring stuff about not letting anyone define your worth for you." Her words felt prophetic, though I had no way of knowing how much I would need them in the moments to come. As we finished our meal, I felt grateful for this time with my sister, for her success, and for the reminder that worth isn't determined by the price tag on your clothes or the balance in your bank account. But the universe, it seemed, had other lessons in store. As we finished our main course, the atmosphere in Romano's shifted subtly. The lunch crowd had reached its peak, and I noticed Ashley moving between tables with practiced efficiency, her demeanor changing like a chameleon depending on her audience. With the business executives, she was deferential and attentive. With the well-dressed women, she was warm and chatty. But when she glanced our way, particularly at me, something cold flickered in her eyes. Elena excused herself to use the restroom, leaving me alone at the table with my thoughts. I sipped my water and watched the elegant dance of service around me. Servers gliding between tables, managers checking on VIP guests, the subtle hierarchy of hospitality on full display. It was fascinating to observe, like watching a well-choreographed performance where everyone knew their role except me. That's when I overheard the conversation that would change everything. Ashley was standing just behind my chair, speaking to another server in hushed tones, but not quietly enough. "Did you see that dress?" Ashley whispered, her voice carrying just enough for me to catch every word. "I mean, seriously, where did she even get that thing?" "Goodwill?" The other server, a young man with slicked-back hair, snickered quietly. "And those shoes? I've seen better footwear at garage sales." My face burned with embarrassment, but I forced myself to remain still, hoping they would move away. Instead, Ashley continued, her voice growing bolder. "I don't understand why people like that even bother coming to places like this. It's obvious she doesn't belong here. Look at her sister, all put together and professional, and then there's her, looking like she raided a discount bin." The young man laughed again. "Maybe she's one of those people who thinks expensive food will somehow make them classy. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work that way. Right?" Ashley's voice was gaining confidence, as if she'd found an appreciative audience. "You can dress up poverty, but you can't hide what you really are. Some people just don't have any self-awareness." Each word hit me like a physical blow. I had experienced judgment before, the subtle looks and quiet assumptions that come with not having much money. But this was different. This was cruel, deliberate, and designed to humiliate. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back, determined not to give Ashley the satisfaction of seeing me break. The conversation continued, but I'd stopped listening. Instead, I found myself thinking about my grandmother's words about clothes not making the person. I thought about David, who loved me in my clearance rack finds just as much as he would if I wore designer gowns. I thought about the children at the library who lit up when I read them stories, regardless of what I was wearing. But mostly, I thought about how wrong it felt to be judged so harshly by someone who knew nothing about my life, my struggles, or my worth as a human being. Elena returned from the restroom, her face glowing with excitement. "I just got a text from David," she said, sliding back into her seat. He's back from his business trip early and wants to surprise you. He's actually on his way here right now." My heart lifted at the news. David had been gone for 2 weeks, the longest we'd been apart since our wedding 3 years ago. His consulting work had been taking him to different cities more frequently lately, and I missed him terribly when he was away. He texted me your location and asked me to keep you here until he arrives. Elena continued. He sounded really excited about something. I think he might have good news about a big contract he's been working on. I smiled, feeling some of the sting from Ashley's comments beginning to fade. David had a way of making me feel beautiful, regardless of what I was wearing or how others perceived me. His love was unconditional, based on who I was rather than what I looked like or how much money I had. Ashley approached our table again, this time carrying dessert menus. Her professional smile was back in place, but I could see the condescension lurking beneath it. "Ladies, can I interest you in our dessert selection today? We have a wonderful tiramisu that's been getting rave reviews." Elena perked up immediately. "That sounds perfect. Catherine, we have to try it. David won't be here for at least 20 minutes. I nodded, though my appetite for sweets had diminished considerably. Ashley scribbled the order on her pad, then looked directly at me with barely concealed amusement. "I hope you're enjoying your dining experience here," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "It's always nice when people get to experience how the other half lives." The comment was subtle enough that Elena missed it entirely, but the meaning was crystal clear. Ashley was making sure I knew that she considered this a temporary elevation, a brief glimpse into a world where I didn't belong. "The service has been lovely," I replied quietly, refusing to take the bait. Ashley's smile widened. "Well, we do try to accommodate all types of guests, even the more budget-conscious ones." Elena was checking her phone and missed the exchange entirely. Ashley walked away with a satisfied smirk, and I felt my cheeks burning again. But this time, along with the embarrassment, I felt something else growing inside me. Anger. Not the explosive kind, but the quiet, determined variety that comes from being pushed too far. The tiramisu arrived 15 minutes later, beautifully presented with artistic chocolate drizzles on the plate. Elena dove in with enthusiasm, praising the delicate balance of flavors and the restaurant's attention to detail. I picked at mine, my thoughts elsewhere. "You're quiet," Elena observed. "Everything okay?" Before I could answer, there was a commotion near the front entrance. The maître d' was greeting someone with unusual deference, practically bowing as he gestured toward the dining room. Other staff members had stopped what they were doing to look, and I heard whispered conversations starting at nearby tables. "Someone important just walked in," Elena said, craning her neck to see. "Probably some local celebrity or politician." I turned in my seat and felt my breath catch. Walking through the restaurant with confident strides was my husband David, but he looked different somehow. More polished, more commanding. He was wearing a suit I'd never seen before, expensive looking and perfectly tailored. His hair was styled differently, and he carried himself with an authority that seemed to command attention from everyone in the room. But it wasn't just his appearance that had changed. The entire restaurant staff was treating him like royalty. The manager had appeared from nowhere to personally escort him, servers were stepping aside respectfully, and I could hear the hushed whispers of recognition spreading through the dining room. "Oh my God," Elena whispered, her eyes wide. "Catherine, is that David? What's going on?" I was wondering the same thing. The man walking toward our table was definitely my husband, but I'd never seen him like this. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it, acknowledging the staff's greetings with casual nods, completely at ease in this environment that had made me feel so out of place. Ashley, who had been refilling water glasses at a nearby table, nearly dropped her pitcher when she saw David approaching. Her face went pale, then flushed red, and I watched her hands begin to shake as she set the pitcher down. David reached our table and immediately leaned down to kiss my cheek, his familiar warmth and scent instantly comforting. But when he straightened up and looked around the restaurant, his expression was serious in a way I'd rarely seen. "Ladies," he said, his voice carrying an edge of authority that sent chills down my spine, "I hope you've been enjoying your lunch." Elena was staring at him with confusion. "David, what's happening? Everyone's acting like you're some kind of celebrity." David's eyes found Ashley, who was frozen in place near the kitchen entrance, her face a mask of growing horror. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly across the suddenly quiet dining room. "I own this restaurant. he said simply, along with 6 others in the city, 2 hotels, and several other properties. Romano's Bistro has been part of my portfolio for about 3 years now. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me, not from shock about David's wealth, but from the realization that everything I thought I knew about our life together had been carefully constructed fiction. Elena's mouth fell open. "You own this place, but Catherine said you were a consultant." David's expression softened when he looked at me. "I am a consultant, in a way. I consult on business acquisitions and restaurant management, but I've been protecting Catherine from the complications that come with wealth because I wanted our relationship to be real, based on love rather than money." He turned back toward Ashley, who looked like she might faint. "I've been away on business, but I have security cameras throughout all my properties. I make it a point to review the footage regularly to ensure my staff maintains the highest standards of service." Ashley's face went from red to white so quickly I thought she might collapse. The other server who had joined in mocking me had disappeared entirely, probably hiding in the kitchen. "I've spent the last hour reviewing today's footage," David continued, his voice growing colder. "And I've seen and heard everything that transpired during my wife's visit here today." The restaurant was completely silent now. Even the kitchen sounds had stopped, as if the entire establishment was holding its breath. David walked slowly toward Ashley, who stood frozen like a deer in headlights. When he reached her, he spoke in a voice that was quiet, but carried throughout the room. "In all my years in business, I've learned that how people treat others when they think no one important is watching reveals their true character. You chose to mock and humiliate my wife because you assumed she was powerless, that her feelings didn't matter, that she was somehow less than you." Ashley tried to speak but only managed a strangled whisper. "Sir, I didn't know." "You didn't know what?" David's voice cut through her excuse. "You didn't know she was my wife? So that makes it acceptable to treat any customer with such cruelty? You didn't know I owned this restaurant? So it's fine to mock guests as long as the owner isn't around?" Tears started rolling down Ashley's cheeks, but David wasn't finished. "The woman you ridiculed for her clearance rack dress spends her free time volunteering at homeless shelters. She organizes literacy programs for underprivileged children. She visits elderly residents at nursing homes who have no family. She chose that dress because she'd rather spend her money helping others than impressing people like you." I felt tears in my own eyes, not from sadness, but from the fierce love and protection in David's voice. "Your behavior today wasn't just unprofessional," he continued. "It was cruel, heartless, and completely contrary to everything this establishment should represent. Effective immediately, you're terminated. Security will escort you out, and you can collect your final paycheck from HR tomorrow." Ashley broke down completely then, sobbing and pleading, but David had already turned away. He gestured to the manager, who appeared instantly at his side. "Please ensure that all staff understand that treating any guest with disrespect will result in immediate termination. I don't care if they're wearing designer gowns or thrift store finds. Everyone deserves dignity and respect." The manager nodded vigorously. "Of course, Mr. Bennett. It will never happen again." David returned to our table, where Elena and I sat in stunned silence. He took my hands in his expression tender and apologetic. "Catherine, I'm sorry you had to experience that. And I'm sorry I've been hiding this part of my life from you. I wanted to protect you from the judgment and the people who would pretend to care about you because of my money." I looked into his eyes, seeing the man I'd fallen in love with beneath the revelation of his wealth. "You're still you," I said softly. "Money doesn't change who you are in your heart." Elena was still processing everything. "So when you said you were traveling for consulting work?" "I was checking on my businesses, acquiring new properties, handling investments," David explained. Everything I told Catherine was technically true, just not complete. As Ashley was escorted out of the restaurant, her sobs echoing through the dining room, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Justice had been served, but I found no joy in her humiliation. Instead, I felt sad that someone so young had learned to judge others so harshly, and hopeful that this experience might teach her to treat people with more kindness in the future. David turned to address the entire restaurant, his voice carrying authority but also warmth. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your dining experience. Your meals today are complimentary, and I hope you'll give us another chance to show you the level of service Romano's Bistro truly stands for." The dining room erupted in appreciative murmurs and even some applause. The mood shifted from tense to almost celebratory, as if everyone had witnessed justice being served. As we prepared to leave, David helped me with my chair, his touch gentle and familiar despite all the revelations of the day. The dress that had made me feel self-conscious earlier now felt like armor, a symbol of authenticity in a world too often concerned with appearances. Walking out of Romano's Bistro that day, hand in hand with my husband, I realized that the most valuable lesson hadn't been about wealth or status or even justice. It had been about the power of staying true to yourself, regardless of how others perceive you, and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who love you for who you are, not what you wear or what you own. Sometimes the universe has a way of revealing truth in the most unexpected moments, showing us that real worth isn't measured in dollars or designer labels, but in how we treat each other when we think no one is watching. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.